Okay. So here we are at this workshop, Accelerate Your Spiritual Journey. So as a lot of people have been saying, some people are going through challenging times, and this period on the earth is challenging, as some of you noticed. For some, you're kind of through the challenges and out into the light, hooray. The way is open and, off I go. But for some of you still going through the challenges, those challenges are normal for most people waking up. Don't expect it's going to be totally easy. If you think of any spiritual teacher on the path, none of them have just had, tequila sunrise in Hawaii beaches. They've all gone through a lot of their stuff and cleared loads of karmic programs. The true nature of the soul is multidimensional. So in this lifetime here on this planet, you're not just clearing up stuff from this present life. You're clearing up stuff from other lifetimes, other places. And some of you might go, well, I've got no idea about that. But the more you open up, the more these kind of connections open up, and it's kind of quite amazing. How many of you have had these kind of experiences of feeling connected to other places or other lifetimes or other parts of you doing other stuff somewhere else, and then you're like, wow, who am I? I'm here, but what's all this going on around me? So one of the things I do these kind of soul matrix healing sessions with people, and a lot of it is other lifetime stuff. A small percentage is this lifetime. If you think of all the stuff in your family that you've grown through, which is like some of it can be tough, think of all the other stuff in other lifetimes that's coming up now. Earth is going through a shift. It's going through from a 3D to 5D shift. Now, that means 3D is fear, separation. And if you look at what's been happening on the planet, war, domination, fighting, grabbing resources, abuse, repression, patriarchal systems, do you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. Some of you have come up against it. Old systems where they go, if you say anything, okay, out you go. we want to keep the system because systems basically want to protect themselves. And 3D systems will protect themselves to the death, and that could be systems like the NHS or very, very caring systems. But if you threaten those systems, suddenly you find that ranks are closed and you may be coming up against very old energies. I do not recommend you try and change these systems from the inside. It's very hard work. If you're in something like the NHS or the government or a bank and you want to change the system, I tried when I was in local government. It's incredibly hard because basically you're trying to change a system that doesn't want to change, and you can't do it from the inside. You have to leave the system and do it from the outside. Almost everyone I've talked to who've gone through this have come up against the same thing. If you look at the world, whistleblowers. Now, some of them have tried to change the system on the inside and come up against the brick wall, so they do that path and they change it from the outside. Edward Snowden's the classic one. The NSA contractor who left the government surveillance system, went out and told the world, do you know the governments are spying on you in every way possible? And suddenly, of course, the American system closed. We've got to get him, he's a traitor. But basically, he was telling people what they needed to know and what they didn't really know. So we're living in a time of confluence, a time of prophecy. If you think of every prophecy on the planet, from Mayan to Revelations to Hopi to Egyptian prophecies, everyone says the same thing. They all say this is a time of spiritual darkness and extreme challenge, transition. On the other side, there's a time of light. Don't expect the time of transition to be easy. It's not easy. Doesn't mean that you can't personally have a kind of flowing reality, but the world is going to be going through a tough time. So these 3D and 5D timeline, the 3D timeline eventually ends in kind of self-destruct. That's the way that timeline was going. If you look at the way the planet was going, if things haven't changed, how long will it be before, boom, up it goes? We're destroying the environment, polluting the planet. Our financial systems are wreaking havoc everywhere, really. The financial systems are at the core of this old 3D paradigm. And the big shift that will come in the years ahead, I don't know how long, how many years, but the financial system has to shift, because when the financial system shifts, the world starts really shifting. and the financial system are out of sync with the energies on the planet. That's why the financial systems are wobbling so badly. If you look, there was a big wobble in 2008. There was a big crash nearly, and they had to inject trillions, was it 19 trillion into it or something? Where can you get $19 trillion? It's amazing. When you need it, it comes from somewhere, you know. So I don't know how many of you are feeling that you're living in two worlds at once. There's this world where you come to these workshops, or you meditate, or you go on retreat, and you go to, Pachamama, these kind of lovely retreat centers, and you go and then you're suddenly in this kind of wow, lovely, everyone's love, and you feel connected. And then you go out in the world, you read the Daily Mail, and suddenly it's like, okay, there's another world out there. Do any of you feel this two-world split? This is normal, this two-world split. Basically, you're stabilizing in the 5D world. And to do that, you have to kind of clear out a lot of the weirdness of the 3D world. So the 3D world might come at you for a bit. Like, challenges might be extreme. As you say, your house might burn down, or they might throw you out of the NHS, or I was ejected, not from a bad organization, but I couldn't stay there any longer. It was a very light organization, but my soul went, out, you go, you can't stay. And I tried to stay. I gave a year's notice. So I really tried to, to stay, but I couldn't stay. There's a kind of vibrational issue that goes on between 3D and 5D. Some of you might have noticed it in relationships, romantic or friendships, where some friendships or connections don't feel right anymore. They're like, I don't know why. We were good friends once, it worked, or we were lovers once, it worked, but now it just, are we trying? No, it won't work. Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, okay, Everyone knows what I'm talking about. And some of you, if you're like me, I've tried to make it work when my second marriage was dissolving. This was the kind of soulmate, love of my life, and I wasn't going to let go very easily, but we tried to come back, and energetically my whole body was going into shock with it, and I was kind of going, I don't understand, why am I reacting so badly with someone I felt so in love with, and I couldn't stay. So part of this shift is happening through two things. The energies impacting the planet now are very high frequency. Since 2012 particularly, the energies have shifted up a gear, and they're going to continue to shift up a number of gears. These energies are coming through Stargate portals like the sun. Our sun is a kind of Stargate portal, and energies from the central sun through the sun and other stargates are impacting the Earth in quite a force. This is shifting the whole dynamic of this planet. The Earth grid's shifting. There's a new grid shifting around the Earth. That's one reason why the Earth is shifting. The other reason is starseeds being born on the planet. Starseeds are people who come from other dimensional spaces, and you might be thinking, am I one? Am I one of these people he's talking about? Well, if you're attracted to these kind of workshops, you almost certainly are. Most of the kind of starseed workshops I've run, only one person ever came that was clearly not one, and he came to support someone else, But mostly a starseed would be someone who feels the Earth doesn't feel like home. There's something quite wrong with the way the planet's being run. It's like in the Matrix, when Morpheus says to Neo, the Matrix, there's something wrong with the world. It's like a splinter in your mind. You can't work out what it is, but it's there. It's that kind of feeling. Starseeds are usually highly sensitive. They're very extremely sensitive to energies. Sometimes they can take on energies, which are, because they're so sensitive, they can absorb energies. So starseeds have to learn how to clear energies out. It's very important. Everyone falls asleep in this 3D world. So that's the part of the deal. When you incarnate, you forget everything. You forget all those other lifetimes. You forget the reason why you've come. And just to back up a bit, life isn't random, therefore. Life is a chosen adventure. We choose it before we come in. We choose the circumstances, the place, the people involved, roughly. There's not a perfect planning, because it's like, imagine this world of 7 billion souls. Somewhere there's got to be a good enough astrological alignment, a good enough parents, a good enough situation to activate what we need to activate. And we will face challenges. Wherever we go, there's challenges. Those challenges are there to activate us. They're not there to punish us. This is not a punishing zone. You could think of Earth as a school, but really it's not a school in the traditional sense where you go and have lessons and you go, oh, I learned how to do maths today. It's not like that. Part of the challenge is to wake up what you already know. Most of this stuff you already know. I'm not teaching you anything. Some of you are going, yeah, I think I get what you're saying, and it's just touching old memories or old energies waiting to activate. Starseeds fall asleep like everyone else, and there's an activation. That activation often happens through some triggering process. Something happens that triggers something. That trigger can be pleasant. You might meet someone lovely who you fall in love with and have a lovely adventure with, and suddenly you start opening up to new energies. It could be challenging, like you could go into crisis. You could be thrown out of your job. You can have your house burnt down. You can have some physical crisis can be an activational trigger that the soul activates in your life to wake you up to something. Now, it doesn't seem a very nice thing, if these things happen, but they're there for a positive intent, really. Then there's another kind of activation, which I call super rough activation, where you have a kind of activation externally and internally. Existential crisis, external crisis. That's the really hard one to go through. And that one usually produces a massive wake-up or a massive activation. So I had a 5-year dark night of the soul triggered by a Kundalini experience in some tantric workshop where my whole energy field started going mental, and then my life imploded. And I was going, my God, why is this happening to me? I knew the theory. It's going to be all right, but, the theory's not really enough. I wanted to see the light, and eventually I did. Fortunately, at this time, we have help. There's lots of helpers. There's a higher self, which is 6-dimensional density self. That's what I'm highest. These terms: higher self, soul, monadic. You heard these terms? Oh, soul. You must have heard of soul. Yeah, soul. Okay. So the soul is our kind of multi-dimensional container of everything we've been doing in this dimension and other dimensions. Akashic records, memories of other lifetimes. Is that? It's activated at a higher chakra level. So once you start doing spiritual work and that one opens, you suddenly start remembering, or having dreams of that lifetime in Egypt, or that experience in Atlantis, or that shamanic journeying thing you were doing in Peru in that lifetime. The soul isn't the end point. The soul is just one point. The higher self is the highest experience of multidimensionality we can connect with. It's almost like the bodhisattva, the Buddhist vow. I turn back to help all souls suffering, to help them across. That's the kind of vow of the higher self. It's part of you that turns back to help lower dimensional selves. Without that bridge, we'd find it very hard to connect with those higher dimensions. Higher self is the bridge between this dimension, lower dimensions, and these higher ones. Then there are higher ones. I won't bore you with the other terms, but there are higher places we can connect to. They all lead back to oneness, our experience of interconnection, oneness. Even at the soul level, we're separate souls. But higher up you go, there's this interconnection that goes on. So to eventually the place where there is no separation, there's just an experience of oneness. But here we have separation and oneness through the heart and various experiences. In this time, the soul is calling. Wake up, get on track. Wake up, get on track. So whether that's through challenge or through synchronicity and flow, you're being told time to do what you promised you would do in this lifetime, whatever that is, whatever that soul mission is. And it's not about becoming a world famous speaker. It's not about writing 10 books. It's more about something you come to open inside of yourself, radiate and do in the world. That could be like love. Some people just want to activate the energy of love within them and be that in the world and connect with people in that way. Other people might be working more mentally. Other people, healing, teaching, depends what your soul calling is. In this journey, what happens is expect your ego to be radically shaken up. You know what I mean by ego? Those voices? Or those feelings in the body, which is like resistance, or the ego is our defense mechanism we take on to cope in the world. expect all of them to be shaken up, which is the challenge, because if we're a certain way and we do the spiritual work, suddenly we start to shift and feel, I don't want to be that way anymore. I don't want to think that way anymore. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to relate this way anymore. That all gets shaken up. And the end point is the ego becomes the servant to these higher energies, not the other way around. In the beginning, the ego fights these energies, goes, I don't know about all this higher self stuff or this light. But eventually the ego gets transformed into a helpful ally. That's the process. And the only other thing I need to mention today we're going to touch upon is the world is your mirror. Have you heard about this before? The world is your mirror? That reality is a perfect reflection of your internal reality. Now, the internal reality is not just this lifetime alone. There are other lifetimes involved as well that you're working on. So whatever the reflections are, it can be shifted by working inside, through beliefs, through ideas, through perceptions, through choices, through emotions that we hold on to, through our worldview. As they shift, the world shifts. Have you experienced this? Have you done that? Some of you have done this work. That as you do it, suddenly you see a different world. And it's like, there's a different world. The people are different. The interactions are different. The experiences are different. And at the beginning, it can be quite like, well, it wasn't freaky for me. It was like, wow, it works. Amazing. My first experience of the world was your mirror was I saw this therapist. She was a crystal healer. And she said, you create your own reality. And I was like, say that again? You know, what? And then she explained this whole process of you create your own reality. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I was late for all my appointments. She lived on the other side of London, and I drove there from where I was living. And I was late always, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It was just very irritating. I was always late. And I thought, okay, if it works, I'll just visualize myself, all the traffic lights being green. Every single one, you know. And each traffic light, I was really, oh, come on, go green, go green. And I was late again. And I said, it didn't work. It doesn't work. But then something inside of me said, try it again. So I thought, oh, okay. It was hard work visualizing every single traffic light. You know, it's like 15 of them or something, you know. So I thought, all right, I'll visualize a clock of me just stepping into a house exactly that time. And then I visualized this and I set out. I didn't do any other work, you know, and I stepped into a house within 5 seconds of that time. And I was like, wow, that's a freaky accident. Okay. Yeah, okay. And I talked to her about it, and I tried it again, and it worked the next time, and the next time, and it worked for 6 weeks on the trot. Within 20 seconds, I was there. So I'm like, wow, this stuff works. So then she said, yeah, now you can go on to the next big step, create a parking space. So that was my next mission, to create parking spaces. And then I was like creating them, like, yeah, I can create parking spaces, and, you know. And then I thought, you know, I was getting really cocky by this time, and I thought, well, if I can create parking spaces, I wanted to go and see this film in the West End, you know, and it was all double yellow lines, you know. So I thought, oh, okay, okay. I'm just going to put a bubble of light around my car and park it on a double yellow line and go and see this film. You know, I was quite naive, and, you know, and I came out and my car was there. Hey, it was protected. I thought, this is great. It's quite stupid, really. I mean, I wouldn't push that one too far, but... and so I explored this for years, about changing the weather and creating all kinds of stuff, you know. And it's worked in the most miraculous ways. Of course, the reverse is true for some people, that they're attracting all kinds of weird crap they don't want without going, why is this stuff happening to me? And when they hear you create your reality, automatically go, well, it's my fault then. That's not what will help. It's my fault. It's not about fault. It's about you can shift something in the outer world by playing in the inner world. So we'll be doing some of that today. How's that sound?